How what's up, y'all? What's poppin'? It's G about to react to this vid by Tells you. It's titled "This TikTok Psychic Just Lost Everything in Court." As you should, if you out here telling people that you could read their future, you playing Miss Cleo, but whole time you're cap and you are scamming people. So I would take you to court and sue you as well if you took my money and you lying to me. But how do you prove this? I don't know. Let's get to see that. Let's watch.
This is a self-proclaimed TikTok psychic, and what she's about to do will change her life forever.
This is not a feeling, this is knowledge. I did a reading when I saw Rebecca Schofield on the History Department's page on Rebecca Schofield and her connection. I also did readings on some of the other people and their connection. What came out on their reading is how they responded to the crimes and how they were feeling about it. What came out in Rebecca Schofield's reading was how she implemented it, how she planned it, and why.
So that was Ashley Gilliard. This self-proclaimed TikTok psychic just lost everything in court and she has no one but herself to blame. And we'll get into that throughout the story. But the clip that we just saw happened in late 2022 when she decided to capitalize off of the tragedy that happened in the University of Idaho and claim essentially a random professor was behind all of that. This professor is Rebecca Schofield. Ashley continued to make dozens of videos claiming that Rebecca was the mastermind behind all of this until enough was enough. Rebecca sent her a cease and desist. So did the TikTok psychic Ashley A, remove all videos to avoid getting sued, or B, double down and make everything infinitely worse for herself? Well, you've seen the title of this video, so I'm sure you have an idea of where this is going. Because
why do people do this? It's the same shit that Tasha K did with the whole Cardi B situation. Her dumbass was warned before Cardi proceeded with the lawsuit. Like, girl, stop talking shit and telling these lies. Take down those videos, but she didn't want to. I would take them down so quick, so fucking quick. Excuse me? What? Y'all are so dumb.
Is this?
And on TikTok, you ain't even getting paid. That's the crazy part. At least Tasha K, she could use the, excuse, well, I was getting money, which is still dumb. But she was getting paid for those videos that were still up. But the TikTok chick?
This was the TikTok psychic's next move.
I'm about to put this demand letter Rebecca Schofield attorney sent me by a tissue so I can wipe my with it.
And then to make things worse for herself, she made this video.
I've been against people, big small corporations and giants and systemic policies and racism in one. They all regret coming with me. All of them. Now Rebecca is going to be added to that list of regretful people. I haven't been served yet, but I'm actually gleaming with excitement. I am going to immediately start planning because I cannot wait to present my ideas in court regarding Rebecca Schofield and her role in the of the 4 University of Idaho students. Like, I have physical evidence against Rebecca Schofield that validates everything that I've said about her, but I can't speak on it now because it has to wait for court. So hopefully court doesn't take too long.
Yeah, that just doesn't make sense. If she had proof, why is she waiting for court? It's all going to be brought up there anyway. The professor did actually send a couple more cease and desists, but clearly that got her nowhere, so they ended up moving forward with a defamation lawsuit. But this whole situation is just like the TikTok psychic made the worst possible decision for her life over and over again. And she kept on getting outs, but she kept choosing the worst possible route for her life. But if you thought things were bad, just like so many of my other videos, it's about to get way worse. Because Ashley, the TikTok psychic, she decides to represent herself.
This water is so nasty.
I still can't believe.
Somebody bought this water for me. Okay, I said I wanted water, and this is what they brought me. But, I don't like to complain, so. I mean, I did kind of complain. Anyway, Arrowhead is what I imagine toilet water would taste like. It's so bad. And if you don't know the difference, you only drink enough water. Because some people are just like, well, water is water. You don't drink water if you can't tell the difference in taste. But this shit tasted like toilet water.
And this is against the 2 complaints of defamation the professor filed against Ashley. And this is all because the TikTok psychic went onto TikTok and confidently said, in the ballpark of about 100 videos, 1, the professor masterminded this horrific crime. 2, that she had a very inappropriate relationship romantically with one of the victims. So these are 2 extremely serious allegations to be spewing out 100 times on TikTok with 0 proof. And then to make things even worse for Ashley, I guess because she's representing herself, she missed the deadline to file her response. So technically, she defaulted right out the gate. She essentially lost the case before it really started. But unfortunately for the professor, the court decided to be lenient towards the TikTok psychic and let her respond late and continue with the case. Ashley then decided to take this leniency and countersue. And there's a massive theme throughout this lawsuit, I guess, because Ashley is representing herself. She's essentially side questing in this lawsuit and not actually focusing on the lawsuit. So, for example, instead of, I guess, responding to the request of admission, she was doing random stuff like that. Or essentially spending all of her time trying to prove that Rebecca Schofield actually did this. What she failed to understand, though, is she's not supposed to start looking for proof after she's been sued for defamation. She's actually supposed to have the proof before she alleges something. But as I mentioned earlier, one of her many F-ups in this case was not responding to her request for admission. Because she didn't do that, that means she technically admitted to everything. And here's essentially like the request for admission that she was sent that she didn't respond to. And that is, admit that you have stated publicly that Rebecca Schofield had an affair with Kaylee. 2, admit that you have stated publicly that Rebecca Schofield was involved with what happened to the victims. 3, admit that plaintiff did not have an affair with Kaylee. My understanding is plaintiff is Rebecca Schofield here. 4, admit the plaintiff was not involved with the Kaylee and the other victims. 5, admit the only basis of your statement that plaintiff had an affair with Kaylee is your spiritual research, intuition, and instincts. So I can't believe this is a real case. You would think this is a parody, but it's real because we're reading it together here. 6, admit that the only basis of your statement the plaintiff was involved with the of all the victims is your spiritual research, intuition, and instincts. 7, admit that you've never been to Moscow, Idaho. 8, admit that you've never been to the state of Idaho. 9, admit that you're not aware of any physical evidence linking plaintiffs to the 10, admit that you're not aware of any physical evidence showing the plaintiff had an affair with Kaylee. 11, admit that you never said plaintiff communicated with Brian C. Koberger about the until Mr. Koberger was arrested on or about December 30th, 2022. So she really was just clout chasing throughout this entire thing. This is such a brain dead grift on the TikTok psychics part, because I mean, like, when updates happened to the case, she then did like psychic readings, I guess, and then she was like, oh, she was communicating with Mr. Koberger. Okay, well, good thing you said that after they arrested the guy. 12, admit that you've never said plaintiff had access to a white Hyundai Elantra until after law enforcement publicly stated they were looking for information about a white Hyundai Elantra in relation to the on or about December 7th, 2022. 13, admit that you've never communicated with Jack. That is a messed up one, because I think I covered this in the first video I ever made on this situation. So here, Jack, if I remember correctly, is one of the close friends of one of the victims. This egotistical, moronic TikTok psychic decided to make a whole story claiming that this professor somehow forced Jack to go through with this horrific action. Because, like, the whole situation is just horrible for them. Because imagine the unthinkable happens to your friends, like, I guess from Jack's shoes, right? The unthinkable happens to your friends. And then suddenly, this random, insane woman on TikTok is claiming that some professor at the school you allegedly go to coerced you to do the unthinkable. And then you have the other angle from Kaylee's family, where the unthinkable happens to your daughter, and then while you're trying to process all this, you have some insane woman on TikTok claiming that she had an inappropriate relationship with a professor at the school she went to. And meanwhile, these videos on her TikTok were racking up hundreds of thousands of views. Like, it is insane. But continuing with what she admitted to, you have 14, admit that you have never communicated with Brian C. Koberger. That's the guy who's currently arrested for it, who they believe did this. But skipping through this a little bit, you have 21, admit that you have no written information showing the plaintiff ever met Jack. This is what I was talking about earlier, where she was claiming that the professor forced Jack to do the unthinkable. It's so wild. I mean, the whole thing is just so disgusting. I'm happy the professor is about to get justice as well. 22, admit that you've never received any information orally from another human being showing that plaintiff ever met Jack. 23, admit that you received and read a cease and desist letter from Stoll Reeves LLP dated, she basically proved that by posting this video.
I was about to say, she showed us and said she gonna wipe her ass with it.
Rebecca Schofield attorney sent me a tissue so I can wipe my with it.
And then the next are just like admitting to receiving a whole series of cease and desists. And then 30 is admit that you became aware of the press release describing the request for admission. You continue to state that the plaintiff was involved with the... So essentially, the police put out a statement saying, hey, we have no evidence that this professor did this. So she saw that and just continued making video upon video, still claiming the professor did this. So as I previously mentioned, because she didn't respond to that, she technically admitted to all of that. So right out of the gate, she's already cooked. But this whole thing still turned into a massive roller coaster of events because she went in with high hopes.
I think this is how y'all want me to feel about a measly ass $75,000 lawsuit that I'm gonna win. my God. Rebecca is suing me.
Then she had a change of heart and then suddenly was saying this is so unfair and she shouldn't have been sued to begin with.
Y'all need to stop asking me about this lawsuit. It should not even have been allowed. First of all, for multiple reasons. But for the legal reason was because it's the improper venue. I'm not an Idaho resident, so I should not be sued. Then they got the nerve to not allow pro se clients to e-file. Meanwhile, so her attorneys are e-filing documents. If I want to file a document, I got to fly to Idaho or mail it in and hope they get it. First of all, there needs to be some type of system that automatically declines lawsuits that are frivolous. Why would you sue a Texas resident in Idaho? It makes no sense. So I will file this motion to dismiss or whatever it is that it needs to file, but I shouldn't have to do it. It should have automatically been rejected for improper venue. It's not fair and it's not cool.
Then she contemplated fleeing the country.
I would like to go to Bali, get myself together, and just enjoy life.
He said flee.
For like a few months.
And finally, she decided to pick herself up by her bootstraps and attempt to win the case.
If you see, there's a lot of videos about the Ford University of Idaho students and who they think did it. But none of them are in court because nobody was threatened by them. I'm in court because I told the truth.
Well, about that, spoiler alert, she got absolutely destroyed. Apparently, tarot cards really don't hold up in court. Who would have known? But don't underestimate her, because she still had some absolute brain-dead tricks up her sleeve, like trying to subpoena the professor's lawyer to testify against her own client. That's like saying, Your Honor, I have the IQ of your shoe size. I guess brain-dead moments like that happen when you represent yourself in court, but the professor's team has now filed a motion for partial summary judgment, and from what I can tell, there's no real reason for it to not be granted, and of course, the TikTok psychic herself, she did respond to that as well. But the TLDR of the professor's motion is plaintiff Rebecca Schofield respectfully requests that the court enter summary judgment on both of her claims against defendant Ashley Gilliard. As a matter of law, and as a consequence of her failure to engage in this litigation as required in the federal rules of civil procedure, Ms. Gilliard has admitted to defaming Professor Schofield. Ms. Gilliard's admissions established beyond dispute that Ms. Gilliard is liable for her defamation of Professor Schofield. Accordingly, all that remains is for a jury to determine the extent of Professor Schofield's damages. And here they essentially just lay it into her by saying the following facts have been conclusively established by Ms. Gilliard's admissions and other evidence. Ms. Gilliard stated publicly that Professor Schofield was involved with all the victims. Professor Schofield was not involved with the victims. The only basis for Mrs. Gilliard's public statements that Professor Schofield was involved this is Ms. Gilliard's spiritual research, intuition, and instincts. Ms. Gilliard is not aware of any physical evidence linking Professor Schofield to them. Ms. Gilliard has no written information and has not received any information orally from another human being showing that Professor Schofield ever met any of the victims. Ms. Gilliard knew the Moscow Police Department issued a press release on December 27, 2022, stating they did not believe that a female associate professor and the chair of the history department who is suing a TikTok user for defamation is involved in this crime. Then they continue by saying concerning Professor Schofield's second claim for relief, the following material facts have been conclusively established. Ms. Gilliard publicly stated that Professor Schofield had an affair with Kaylee. Professor Schofield did not have an affair with Kaylee. The only basis for Ms. Gilliard's statement for Professor Schofield had an affair with Kaylee was Ms. Gilliard's spiritual research, intuition, and instincts. Clearly, that's a common theme in this whole lawsuit. And then it just continues by saying Ms. Gilliard is not aware of any physical evidence showing that Professor Schofield had an affair with Kaylee. And then you have the conclusion to this, which reads, for the reasons stated herein, Professor Schofield respectfully requests the court to grant plaintiff's motion for summary judgment and hold Ms. Gilliard liable for defamatory statements as a matter of law. The evidence conclusively establishes that Ms. Gilliard's statements defame Professor Schofield. All that remains is for a jury to determine the amount of Professor Schofield's damages. I mean, the TikTok psychic is cooked here. She's absolutely grilled. She has no wiggle room here at all. She lied about a random professor for attention on the internet, and clearly it's not a harmless lie. This is serious life-ruining defamation, not only for the professor, but also for the families of the victims. I briefly touched on this earlier, but because what makes this a whole new level of messed up is the outrageous statements about the victims, and they're not even here to defend themselves. I just can't imagine being a grieving family, having the unthinkable happen to your kid, and then have some random psycho on the internet making up a bunch of lies about them, claiming they had an inappropriate relationship and so on and so on. That's the last thing you want to hear. It's just a beyond disgusting thing to do, and hopefully this case now comes to an end. But of course, not before the TikTok psychic Ashley responded yet again. And this whole response just proves how incoherent she is. I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but like some of this just needs to be documented. Like I read this and I was like, guys, we gotta talk about this because this is just, it's insane. Introduction. Comes now, defendant Ashley Gilliard is in opposition to plaintiff Rebecca Schofield's motion for partial summary judgment. This litigation is a matter of determining the truth of the matter, whether or not Rebecca Schofield caused of the 4 University of Idaho students. It's not about that. The whole case is if you defamed her or not. This is not the time to role play as a detective. No, you're supposed to show the court what evidence you had before you made these statements. It's also important to determine if the court has subject matter of jurisdiction over the plausibility of spiritual belief and practices, which was brought into question by Docket 50. Lastly, it is also important to determine if spiritual messages give rise to a cause of action for defamation. None of the above have been determined. Additionally, defendant Ashley Gilliard has never admitted to defaming plaintiff Rebecca Schofield. Instead, she has continuously argued that this litigation was brought illegally in bad faith to avoid Rebecca Schofield from being properly investigated for ordering the victim. She keeps double downing. And also, she did admit by not responding. This whole case is just gonna go in loops because she's not giving any leeway, and she clearly doesn't even understand what she's doing because this isn't the place for that. Why is she... Like, as I mentioned earlier, she's like doing these like side quests that have nothing to do with this court case to do. She's just LARPing as a detective. This litigation has been complicated by the courts and the public's ignorance on plausibility of tarot card readings, spiritual connections, and spiritual beliefs. Defender Ashley Gilliard has evidence that she and her spiritual messages are reliable sources. For example, Ashley Gilliard conducted an intuitive tarot card reading for someone on March 8, 2023. It predicted the upcoming death of the person's husband, who was otherwise healthy and young. She's really using a YouTube video of her doing tarot card readings as proof in a lawsuit that tarot cards work. Yeah, it's just like a 40-minute long video of her doing a tarot card reading for, I guess, a client. And I guess that client's husband passed away later on. Oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man. Sorry, I'm dumbfounded. I'm actually at a loss of words. This is
if I was a judge, I would.
And because she did a tarot card reading on the school faculty website of, I guess, a random professor, she then believes that's facts. So much so that she makes 100 TikToks and then ignores cease and desist, goes forward with a lawsuit claiming she's excited to prove that she actually did this in this lawsuit, completely misunderstanding the whole point of a defamation case. And throughout the entire defamation case, she just keeps doubling down, claiming that, no, she did this. She really did this. Man, the internet is wild because without the internet, I would have had zero idea that people like this actually exist. So because of this, she has reasons to believe the messages she received about Rebecca Schofield are substantially true. Schofield and her attorneys have continuously lied about Ashley Gilliard in every legal document they filed in the civil complaint. For example, Wendy made a false statement that defendant Ashley Gilliard posted content about the students to make money. Attorney Wendy published that lie about Ashley Gilliard knowing it was false because she had the documents from TikTok provided to her after the subpoena dated June 20th, proving that defendant Ashley Gilliard did not make any money by posting content on TikTok. Okay. Exactly. What about that client you just showed you had? I'm assuming because you made all these TikToks and you had your email to book you as a tarot card reader, you received clients that way. So you received money from this, even though it wasn't TikTok monetization. So that's also just being misleading. But also, that's just like a small thing. That's like a side quest again, because this whole case is about, did she defame the professor or not? Attorney Wendy also promulgated several lies about Ashley Gilliard in multinational news media. Additionally, Gilliard has reason to believe the entire complaint was filed fraudulently and frivolously. As a matter of law and as punishment for continuous judicial misconduct and several prejudiced statements and documents, defendant Ashley Gilliard requests the court to deny the plaintiff's motion for summary judgment and to heavily punish the plaintiff and her legal counsel with sanctions. Oh man, this must be such a weird case to be a judge on, because how do you keep a straight face when one of the signs is throwing down tarot cards as facts and using them as arguments, representing herself, and then also just doesn't even understand how a lawsuit is supposed to be, clearly because she's not a lawyer. Oh man, like this is so bad. But here's the conclusion to her response. If Gilliard's statements are read favorably to the defendant, it will read that she is believed to be telling the truth about Rebecca Schofield's role in the 4 University of Idaho students and Schofield's affair with Haley. So she keeps on doubling down. Additionally, the plaintiff has not provided any evidence that Gilliard is not telling the substantial truth. Well, the whole thing that you forgot to respond to, technically you admitted that you were defaming the professor in that. So that's a big oopsie. Schofield and attorney Wendy has continuously abused the judicial system. They filed the frivolous complaint, disrespected spirituality, Ashley Gilliard, and her spiritual beliefs. They've lied in every docket they filed in the complaint to manipulate the court to believe lies about Ashley Gilliard. They've blocked Gilliard's attempts at obtaining evidence to prove that she's telling the truth about Rebecca Schofield's role. Okay, so we briefly touched on that in one of my previous videos I made on this. And at one point, Ashley tried to subpoena the professor for essentially her entire digital footprint, bank records, all of her social media accounts, to essentially just try to find anything that could corroborate her insane story. So clearly she's mad that she wasn't granted that. Now, they filed a frivolous request for summary judgment. Whether or not the court has jurisdiction, and if the court impeded upon Gilliard's right to judicial impartiality, is pending. Discovery is still ongoing. No, it's not. This is insane. For the aforementioned reasons, the request of summary judgment is inappropriate and must be swiftly denied. The court must deny the request for summary judgment unless it is for a complete dismissal of the complaint and punish Schofield and her attorneys with sanctions. Anything less is an impediment to judicial impartiality for Gilliard. And then here you have like the biggest, what is going on here, the prayer of relief that says she wants. So this is like what she wants from us. Award Ashley Gilliard all court-related fees and sanctions pursuant to Rule 11 in the amount of $1 million. Okay, number one, what fees? Because she's representing herself. I guess like what, like filing fees for like the countersuit she tried to file? That would probably be the only thing she paid money for, I think. But $1 million. So is she claiming that she received $1 million in damages from lost clients for her tarot card reading business? I'm trying to understand, where did she pull the $1 million on? Did she just go, well, I went through all this, I deserve $1 million? Where are you getting the number from? But other than that, she also wants to dismiss the action with prejudice due to failure to state a claim for relief pursuant to Rule 12b-6. And 3, set aside order docket 49 pursuant to Rule 60 and Rule 60b. Okay, that was possibly the dumbest legal document I have ever read through. Thank you, Ashley Gilliard. Very cool. Honestly, yeah, if I was a betting man, I would never bet any money on her winning this case because it's guaranteed she's going to get cooked. Essentially, she's just given us a masterclass on how to make an absolute fool out of yourself and ruin your life, all in the span of a year. And somehow, she also has a child to provide for as well. So to that kid, good luck, Charlie. You're really going to need that. Because, I mean, with this role model, it's safe to say odds are stacked against you. I'm still trying to figure out where she got the $1 million from. Because she was the one that made in the ballpark of 100 TikToks defaming the other part, not vice versa. This whole case is just so incredibly bizarre. But that's the story of how this TikTok psychic ruined her life in just the span of a year.
Oh, I wanted to hear the results of the case. I guess it's still ongoing, but this is so stupid. Like, why? And the fact that you got warned multiple times to stop, but you still double down and continue to spew this nonsense is crazy. So much you got these spiritual connections and the intuition, like, that is not going to hold up in court, girl. All this is dumb. And you want $1 million for what exactly? You were the one causing emotional distress, not the other way around. I'm so confused. Hot mess. Y'all let me know what y'all think, though. Let me know what other videos you want to watch, and I'll see you on the next time. Bye.